we go. Hi everyone, this is Margaret Hirsch at Home with Hirsch's, and thank you for joining us for our chat this morning by Motivational Monday. And boy, have we got a lineup for you. And thank you all for your amazing comments last week. We loved having you on the show, and we love the comments. So please comment. Those of you who are joining us on Facebook Live, please comment on Facebook Live. We will get those comments through. And if you're on the show with us, please send your comments through. We love the comments. That's our best bit. So today we've got an amazing lineup, and here I am with my co-hosts Stacey and Jess from Connectable Life. And boy, have I put it out there. So many people have been so thrilled to know that you even exist, and that's amazing. Stacey, now I'm going to hand over to you. You're going to introduce our guest speaker for today. So come on in.
Thank you so much, Margaret. And hello, everyone. Welcome to our Motivational Monday. Thank you so much for joining us. And thank you, Margaret, for telling people about Connectable Life, because that's exactly why we're here. We just want to be a space that can help. So today, Kirsten is going to be talking to us. She is a certified life and recovery specialist coach. She helps to equip people with necessary tools and techniques that they can use to manage eating disorders, addictive behavior, and mental well-being. She is a coach on the Connectable Life platform and is passionate about helping individuals overcome internal conflict through a holistic-based approach that incorporates elements of CBT, NLP, and spiritual coaching and addiction recovery coaching. So Kirsten, thank you so much for joining us today, and over to you. We can't wait to hear what you have to tell us.
Hi, thank you so much for having me on this platform. It's really just such an honor, and welcome to everyone who is attending. So this morning, I want to just chat a little bit about this idea of mindfulness and the way that the mind works and how powerful it is in terms of reaching pretty much your optimal thriving self. And a lot of people speak about this concept of mindfulness. They say, you know, mindfulness is the way forward, and you're hearing it all over the place. And it becomes a bit complex when you don't actually understand what that means. So when I look at mindfulness, I think of the ability to connect the way that you think with your intentions and your true self within. And it's a way of integrating the way that you think with the things that are happening externally, so your situations, and the things that are happening internally, so your emotions and your feelings. And once you become able to integrate these elements and see how they really interact with each other at any given moment all together, you're really able to start going, okay, the way that I think affects the way that I feel. The way that I feel affects the way that I behave. The way that I behave affects the experiences I have, and so forth. And it's never one thing. You can never isolate just your thoughts or just your emotions or just your external experiences or anything like that. And it's about really learning how to bring these elements of your thoughts, your emotions, your feelings, and your external situations into coherence. And so what I'd like to very, very briefly touch on is this idea of what an amazing author and speaker called Dr. Joe Dispenza calls brain and heart coherence. So if you think of your brain as an electronic circuit, just as you have in your house, there are certain things that need to be connected. And when they're connected, the electricity flows correctly through that connection. So the way that I think of the brain, and on a scientific level as well, because your brain is actually just a complex network of electrical connections, you actually think of your brain as a physical circuit. So there's ways in which your brain works. When certain parts are connected, it will work in one way. And when other parts are connected, it will work in a different way. And so when you think about your mind, you've got to realize that if the wrong parts are connected together, then your brain is not going to function optimally. And your brain is the organ that controls your thoughts, your behaviors, your rationalization, your ability to feel calm and everything. So what you really want to be doing in life is finding the best ways, the tools and techniques that can help you connect those wires in the right way so that the electricity is flowing correctly and freely. And there's no blockages, there's no shortages and that kind of thing. And it's been shown through brain scans and, just scientific experiments and everything that the brain operates on different wavelengths and at different frequencies. And that's the same with electrical charge. It operates at different frequencies, at different speeds and stuff like that. And so science is showing today that you can actually train your brain to work in a way electronically, in a sense, that brings you towards a better functioning. And it's been shown that the act of mindfulness, awareness, and stilling the mind is the fastest and most effective way to make sure that these connections are working. And I also like to take it one step further to think, my circuitry isn't going to work if I don't plug in. So I always think about that as like, I'm never going to be able to feel at peace if I don't plug into the action of bringing myself to peacefulness. So there's this whole idea that we can't get what we want without doing the action first. So now that I've hopped around a whole bunch of different things, I just want to really talk to you about this brain and heart coherence, that is like this ability to take what's happening on in the mind and this ability to take what's happening in the head and to connect the two. And how I like to think of it is that the throat is the thing that connects the head and the heart. And the throat also represents your voice, your authenticity, your character, your personality. This is very metaphorical, by the way. And so what I like to think is that when you show up in life as your most authentic self, and you show up presently in that authenticity, you can bring your brain and your heart to coherence. And the only way that you're going to be able to do that is to create space. And how you create space is through mindfulness techniques. And so basically what I want to emphasize in this little presentation is the fact that our brains can thrive. And when our brains thrive, we're able to understand, identify, and our emotions, our triggers, our feelings. And when we're able to understand and identify and really pick apart those things, digging deep, we can start to see how they affect the way that we behave, the choices we make. And for example, you could say every single night you get home from work and you have an argument with your spouse. And you keep on having the same argument and you can't understand why. Like, why did I snap? Why did we, and it could be something as simple as you left the butter out the fridge or something stupid like that, And when you start to trace it back, it's because maybe at work that day, you're feeling a sense of the fact that you don't have any authority or autonomy or freedom or whatever. And so you're feeling frustrated and you're carrying that frustration, not dealing with it, not noticing it, not seeing how it affects your mind, your behaviors and everything. And then maybe on the way home from work, you decide you're going to stop by the garage and buy 10 chocolates and eat them in the car, and you're frustrated in traffic, and you get all these things that are just happening that you're not aware of, that you're not creating space for. And then you get home and your spouse leaves the butter out the fridge and suddenly it's a fight, So this idea of mindfulness is the ability to be able to stop, to create a gap in between the thought that happens and the behavior as the outcome of the thought. And that gap is where awareness sits. And so some ways, and the most effective way, I believe, in finding this ability to recognize that gap and to know that when I think a certain way, I'm going to behave a certain way, so I need to assess that thinking, is to practice meditation. And a lot of people think that meditation is just sitting on a cushion chanting Om. And yes, it can be that. A lot of people find that beneficial. But I think that meditation is, like I said, it's showing up authentically and it's being present in that authenticity. So this morning, I drank a glass of water because I drink a glass of water first thing I wake up. And as I was drinking the glass of water, I thought to myself, this is like an element of life that is being put into my body. I thought of the textures of the water. I thought of the taste. I thought of it hydrating me. I thought of it going down my throat. And it was probably about a 30-second experience. But for that 30 seconds, I was completely present in what I was doing. And it doesn't have to be hours and hours of meditation, and you don't have to be sitting on a cushion on the top of a mountain or whatever. You just have to bring yourself presently to a moment. And sometimes what I like to do is, if I'm experiencing a certain thing that is not conducive to my thriving in my life, I take a few steps back. I say, okay, I am looking at this situation of having an argument with my spouse because of the butter. Okay, that's the outcome. So I take a step back. I go, what was I feeling in this day? I was feeling frustrated. And then from frustration, I take a step back. What was the event that caused me to become frustrated? And then from that event, I take a step back even further and I say, what was I thinking about that event? And so, for instance, if I trace back to being frustrated because I don't have enough authority or I'm not acknowledged in my workplace, I've got to think, I'm not acknowledged in my workplace. What is my thinking around there? My thinking is I'm not valued. My thinking is I don't have a voice. My thinking is maybe I can't have a voice. And then I can start to assess what is truth or what is fact and what is fiction. And in this situation, and it's just a random situation that I grabbed at, but in this situation, I think to myself, okay, if I believe I don't have a voice, I will never try to have a voice. So maybe if I can say, I do have a voice, I can then say, well, how do I put that belief into action? Maybe I can go to my boss or a colleague or something and express how I feel. Maybe I can take a stand in trying to give my opinion more in meetings, or maybe I can have a heart-to-heart discussion with my employer to say, you know, this is where I feel like I could contribute to the workplace, or something like that. And when I start to do that, I start to see my belief that was causing me to be frustrated, that's causing me to shout at my husband because of the butter, actually can be completely changed. And maybe if I have this confrontation with my employer and I say, you know, I really feel that I could contribute this way towards the workplace, then maybe I'll feel more fulfillment. Maybe I'll feel more acknowledged and more valued. And then I can move towards not feeling that frustration and that pent up anger and shouting at my husband for no reason, you know. So, I mean, I know there's a lot for us to discuss in this time. So maybe I'll hand it over to Margaret if you have any questions or any insights with what I've been talking about.
Oh, yeah, I think that's amazing. And I love the bit about going and buying the chocolates at the shop, because a lot of people do, but they're frustrated about something, they go to food. Now, I'm one that goes to food and I eat a lot, and then you get people who go to food and don't want to eat at all. So let's just relate to food, because I know you've got experience in food and how it affects your moods and that type of thing. If I'm feeling miserable, I'll definitely go and eat something. There's no doubt about it. That's what I do. Now, when I'm feeling miserable and I think, geez, I'm just going to go and get some biscuits out the cupboard. What do I say to myself? Why am I doing this? That's what I say to myself. Why are you doing this? Well, I know I'm doing it because I feel lousy. This happened and I just feel that's lousy. So I'm just going to have this biscuit and it's going to make me feel better. How do you talk to yourself there? Because it's literally talking to yourself about these things all the time. What do you say to yourself when you want to go and just open the cupboard and take something out and eat it?
Okay, so the first thing that we've got to recognize there is that food is a relationship. And food is a direct relationship to your external self and your internal self. So if you can look at your relationships to your spouse, your siblings, your friends, your whatever, you can assess how those relationships are, how healthy they are. In the same way, you can assess this relationship you have to food, right? So a lot of the time when we have a negative relationship with a person, it's because there's things that we aren't discussing. There's things we aren't confronting. There's things that we aren't being honest about. We're too afraid of conflict. We're too afraid to open that door or seek in that cupboard or whatever, you know. So what I like really encourage people to do when they are wanting to grab that packet of biscuits because they're feeling that compulsion, because that's what it is, it's a compulsion, is to think about this gap, right? That gap that I spoke about. And this is actually something that I teach in a program that I help with eating disorders. Is this gap is that space in between the thought that you're having, or the feeling that you're having, and the behavior that you're experiencing. And a lot of people have these two right here, and they don't create that space in order to go for things like, for instance, you may be incredibly tired because of work that day, and automatically your brain is going to interpret tired as hungry or snackish or whatever. And you've got to also realize that our food relationship happens in a part of the brain that is the same association with satisfaction, with pleasure, and with the fight or flight response. So when you are responding in a way of compulsively eating, you're actually responding from a fight or flight response. And the only way to remove yourself from that way of thinking, because when your brain is active that way, it has absolutely no ability to rationalize. So asking, why am I doing this? It's not going to help your brain, because your brain isn't thinking on rational levels. You've got to ask, what is going on? You know, you've got to ask, you've got to literally stop. You've got to stop and you've got to assess what is going on. And sometimes, like a very simple way of looking at it at first is to use the acronym HALT, which is hungry, angry, lonely, tired. What thing am I actually needing to fulfill? Am I hungry? And that doesn't necessarily mean food hungry. It means, am I hungry for success, for passion, for comfort or whatever? Am I angry? Do I need to express myself? Because especially as women, a lot of the time we have this idea that it's not okay to express anger. So we internalize it and we push it down with food. And then lonely. So we might be working towards, we might be reaching towards food as a sense of comfort, because food releases endorphins. And so when you eat that food, you get an illusion of comfort from it. Or you might actually be tired. And like I said, tired is pretty much, they've shown on like brain activity that when you're extremely tired or stressed, the same part of the brain lights up that is associated with intoxication. So you're not actually making choices that are in your best sound mind. So I think the best thing that you would do for yourself in that time is to remember that you can pause, you can have a gap, you need to create space. And creating space doesn't happen always in the moment. It happens before the moment. And what I mean by that is there's a concept I've got, the 4 P's of mindfulness is practice, preparation, position, and I forget the last one now. I'll actually open it up here while I'm talking. But it's basically like if you think of a person who's a rugby player practicing for kicking through the goalposts, right? He has to sit on that field for hours and kick and kick and kick, and he's not going to get it right. But the reason he does that is because when it comes to the game, he's going to have to get it right. And he might not even get it right in that moment. And he can't beat himself up, because what we do with mindfulness and creating space is we're preparing ourselves for life. We don't meditate and do mindfulness in order to get good at meditating. We do it in order to get good at life, you know? So if you can find time and space, even if it's 2 minutes a day, to create space for yourself to check in and go, what's really going on? And I'll tell you about my 4 questions just now. But if you can do that, then you're more likely to be able to implement that same technique in that moment you're reaching for the biscuits. And when you can then answer that question, say, what's really going on? You might be able to fulfill the need that you really actually are seeking, you know? And remember that the compulsion to grab the biscuits is a habit. And habits, once they're ingrained in certain ways, become very hard to rewire. So you might be grabbing those biscuits and you're not even feeling something that needs to be dealt with. It's just second nature, like driving a car. So in order to create that space on a daily basis, there's 4 questions that I ask myself. And the first one is, what do I need to focus on in this present moment? The second one is, what positive thing can I affirm over this moment? The third one is, what am I feeling? And the fourth is, what do I need? And if I can practice learning how to ask myself those 4 questions at any given moment, I'm then able to implement it more when I'm feeling compelled to act out on things that aren't serving me. So I hope that helps.
Thank you. That was amazing. Now, just coming, Stacey, now, how do you deal with people who come to you with all sorts of things, from addictions, which is food, could be drugs, could be alcohol? I think a lot of people are drinking quite a lot over this time. I don't drink at all. And I see other people drink, and I think, wow, you're drinking a lot. And they say, no, this is not really a lot, you know. And you see them. Do you think that we should say to our friends, who you see them, quaffing the wine down from 11 o'clock in the morning, hey, do you think, and I said, do you think you're drinking quite a lot? And they say, no, this is quite normal, How do you deal with that type of situation?
Yeah, well, this is not my area of expertise, to be honest. This is all Kirsten's area of expertise. But my thing is, Kirsten, you said so much. And in regards to what you just said, Margaret, I guess it's a case of being present. It's a case of looking at what we're doing and looking at how we are reacting instead of responding to our emotions and the situations that we are facing in our day-to-day. Like you asked the question, Margaret, do we take things out on our spouse? And that is huge for me. When I'm feeling stressed, I take things out on the people I love. I take things out on my spouse. I take things out on myself. I doubt myself. I'm so critical. I'm so harsh when I'm stressed. And I take things out on my children, sadly. I'll be stressed about something and they will just be doing their normal childhood behaviors that are not terrible, and I will react instead of responding in a kind, gentle way. And so I love what you say, Kirsten, about being present and about looking at where we're at in the moment. I know a big thing for me is with meditation, the thing that I have honed in on is journaling. For me, it's been a powerful activity in my life, and I've been able to look at my thoughts on paper and then see it constructively and figure out a way forward from there. But Kirsten, I love that you spoke about the brain, because that probably in this whole area of therapy is my favorite. A few years ago, I was, especially growing up, I was a very toxic, negative person. I had quite toxic reactions to things, and I had a victim mentality, so I was always the victim. And that was something that I had to come to terms with and learn how to deal with, and it was through brain science and learning about neuroplasticity and changing your brain and changing your thought processes. And this was something I went to counseling for, and myself and the therapist worked through these points, and I learned how to retrain my brain, and through neuroplasticity walk down a road where I was now not the victim, and I was now taking responsibility for things. And isn't that the case why we drink? Maybe is that we feel like a victim, and how are we going to respond to it? I mean, there are lots of aspects, that's just one, but the woe is me, let me just drink, and let me just eat, and let me behave badly and treat people badly. So what are your thoughts, Jess?
I think alcohol definitely gives you the courage. I mean, at the end of the day, you need courage to do that. You need courage to confront a person at work. You need courage to change yourself. It takes a lot of courage. Jess, what do you think about that? What do you think about the courage that it takes to make that change?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the hardest part. I mean, life happens, things happen to us, and we all need ways to cope. Otherwise, we just wouldn't cope. And obviously, there's healthy ways of coping and there's unhealthy ways of coping. And for some people, that is gambling, it is sex addictions, it's drinking, it's over-the-counter medication. You know, it could be something as simple as eating too many chocolates, but it's your way of coping rather than getting to the root of what's actually going on. But I think that's where mindfulness is so key. You know, we live such hectic lives, such stressed lives, and we spend probably 50% of our time worrying about things that have happened and we can't actually change, and the other 50% worrying about things that may happen but probably won't. And so mindfulness gives us this chance and opportunity to be fully present and think about what's going on right now, and not to forget about what has happened or to diminish what has happened, or to not think about tomorrow and plan for tomorrow, but to just for that moment be ourselves, be with ourselves, be present, and not have all the unwanted or unneeded stress, anxiety, and worry in that sort of moment. So it really gives us the opportunity to be ourselves. And I think going back to taking things out on our spouses and people closest to us, we are fully ourselves with those people. So whatever we are feeling on the inside, that is what we portray to them. Whereas if you go to a friend's house, you know, you may act as though everything's okay, because it may be a friend that you're not 100% comfortable with being yourself. Whereas you know, if you're in the right marriage or have the right friends, then you will be comfortable being 1000% yourself, and then you will take those things out on them because you feel like you can. Doesn't necessarily mean you should, but you feel like you can because you feel like it's a comfortable space. So yes, it really is about finding healthy ways to cope, and mindfulness is absolutely one of those.
Now, Kirsten, I want to ask you, you know, a lot of people, they say, I've been so depressed lately. I don't know what it is. I'm so depressed lately. And I just want to shake them and say, no, you can't be like that. But I'm not a coach and you are. When people, a lot of your friends just say, oh, you know, I'm really just feeling down. I've worked with some amazing women. They're beautiful. They've got fantastic husbands. They're rich. And they say to me, I'm depressed. I say, oh my God, I mean, come on, get over it. And they say, I can't. So when somebody's feeling a bit down, and what do you say to them? Where's the first place that they start?
Okay, so this kind of brings in the previous question as well. It's like you're asking, you know, you've got this friend who's drinking and you say, you know, don't you think you're drinking too much or whatever? Or this person says, like, I'm feeling quite depressed and everything. And like I said in previously, was this ability to deal with things in the present moment come from how you prepare outside of those spaces. So for instance, with the drinking thing, asking someone, don't you think you're drinking too much, is the wrong question, because you're asking them when they're already doing it, you know. And so like if you're in an airplane and you say to the pilot, like, you know, don't you think we should be flying? And he's like, well, we already are, you know. It's like you need to be asking these questions when the person is on the ground, you know. You need to be, so if your friend comes to you and says, oh, I'm feeling so depressed, like in that moment, the best thing to do for that person is to go, well, what is making you feel this way? You know, try and help them explore why they've said that thing. So what has caused it? Because then maybe in that moment, all they need to do is release some baggage onto someone that is willing to listen, you know. Then outside of those times, maybe you can approach them and say, and this is where encouragement comes in from people. If you really care about this person, this is where encouragement comes in. And one of the things that I used to do, or that I tried to do with clients I saw before it was all online, and this is where you've got to start thinking out the box, is a lot of the time depression comes from inaction, and it comes from low doses of serotonin and dopamine in the brain. So once again, it's a very much a brain thing. And so what I will try to do is I'll try to increase that person's dopamine and serotonin through action. So I used to have clients where we'd be in a session and I'd be like, you know what, we don't need a session today. We need to go walk. We need to go walk, you know, and we would just go for a walk and we chat, because I'm putting them into action rather than keeping them stuck where they are. And sometimes you can't talk a person through depression. You have to help them physically move their bodies, physically integrate. And there's actually a thing, it's called embodiment therapy, where you start to help the person connect on a physical level. And through that, it removes the barrier that they're feeling, because a lot of the time depression is very, very connected to how a person is physically feeling. So if you can break down that wall of the physical feeling and you can get them into movement, then you can find that there's a certain wall that gets broken down. So maybe next time you're having a chat to that friend, say, hey, let's go for a walk here in the forest or on the beachfront or whatever. If you're in nature, that's even better. Or let's go do something, you know. And then in that time, give them once again the space they need to feel connected away from this thought of being depressed and into the space of action. So that's how I would approach it.
So lots of times people come and you're feeling fine. Oh, you're having a wonderful day. And then this person comes and they say, Margaret, I've got to talk to you. And then they go, on and on and on about how bad life is and that type of thing. And you help them. And then at the end of it, you start saying, geez, I was feeling quite good, but now I'm feeling really yucky because they dumped all their shit on you and you sort of absorbed it. How do you as a therapist stop yourself absorbing all the stuff that people throw at you?
Okay, so there's two things there. Number one, I've got to be very, very resilient in my ability to not let someone else's emotions affect mine. So for instance, I've had clients or people that I help that have been on suicide watch or something like that. And it breaks your heart, but in a certain way, you've got to say, that's not my responsibility. That's not my, I'm not here to fix everything. So you have to be able to say, this is where I am happy and healthy. And I cannot help another person if I'm not keeping myself in that place, you know? So I have to practice resilience here. I have to practice boundaries as well. So for instance, and I know that this is going to go a little bit against what most people think, is because most people want to people please and help other people by, like, you know, just being the ear to listen to. But I'm very much adopt the notion of, if someone comes and sits next to me and all they're doing is depressed talking and loading all of their stuff onto me, there'll come a point where I'll say, you know what, you're sitting in your own crap right now and you need to go do this. And if you're not going to go do that, then, like, quite frankly, this conversation doesn't have a purpose, you know? So you've got to walk that fine line between listening compassionately and being there for the person versus knowing when to put your foot down and say, you've got to dig yourself out of this, you know. And also then giving them the option, say, you know what, if you're feeling this way, here's a suggestion of what you could do. Are you keen to do that? And if they say no, then you step back, you know, because you can't bring a horse to water and make a drink. You can only say, here's the water, here's your options. And then it's their choice to drink the water. And if they don't choose to drink the water, then you step out. And that is also where your ability to, and I mean, as an empathetic person, you would tend to take those things on to a certain extent. But if you create enough mindfulness and awareness of yourself, you will know when your boundary has been crossed. You will know, like, okay, this person is now draining me. I need to walk away. And you can do that in a completely compassionate and healthy way. Say, you know what, it's been lovely talking to you. I'm really sorry you're going through this. Here's something you could do. Here's what I suggest. I have to get on with my day. You know, let me know if you want to chat again. You know, you've got to set the boundaries for yourself, because ultimately you're the one walking away saying, I feel worse, which means that there's some level that you weren't authentic to your own boundaries and your own limits, and you didn't honor them. So that's how I would approach that.
People say you can't pour from an empty cup, so you've got to fill yourself up first, and you've got to look after yourself first. But sometimes you feel a bit selfish, you know, like I'm sort of okay, I just got to perk myself up a bit, but these other 4 people, they're really in a bad way. How much do you actually look after yourself, and how good do you get yourself before you feel that you can go and help other people? Because we always want to help our friends when they come with all this thing, and you think to yourself, well, am I really qualified? Is my cup full first? Jess, you come in on this one, and people come to you and they say, and you've got to find them somebody who's going to take care of them. How do you do that? Do you fill your own cup first?
Yeah, I think that's where, you know, the whole practice what you preach comes in. You know, we can't be telling people that they must be mindful and physically active and eat the right food and do all these things if we're not doing it ourselves. So it's going to be really, really difficult to have the patience and have the empathy and the sympathy needed to help people that are going through depressive states or whatever it may be if we're not feeling good ourselves. And it will be draining a lot faster if we're not in a good space ourselves. And I also just wanted to touch on the boundaries. That was going to be my comment, that if something's starting to make you feel uncomfortable or exhausted or drained, whatever it is, then it's now imposing on you. And then it is time to sort of very nicely put a boundary down and say, you know, maybe I can't really help you with this, but I know somebody who can. Or I read a cool article, or here's a video, so that you're not walking away and sort of dusting your hands of the person, because that probably won't make them feel better either. But, you know, doing your little bit within your capacity. And then, as Kirsten says, if they use that, great. If they don't, then that's obviously going to be on them. I think it comes down to the fact that very often people are looking for quick fixes, and they think that if they do go and dump this load, or they do go to a therapist for one session, I know we've discussed this before, that they'll feel better, that it's going to be this magical wand. And you don't. And it's the small things in life that we have to do every day to really feel good. And they are small things. And, you know, the biggest excuse is that we don't have the time, but we have time to binge watch a series, or you know, whatever your guilty pleasure is. We've got time to do those things, but we don't have 30 seconds in the morning to journal, 30 minutes in the afternoon to go for a walk, eat the correct food. You know, we're doing these things anyway. It's maybe just shifting things a little bit so that it's better for our minds, and obviously then better for our body, and vice versa.
I think our boundaries, I think, are so important. I just put there's a book called Boundaries, and thank you, Stacey, you said about Dr. Henry Cloud. I think my daughter read that because I'm a very pushy mother. I was imposing on her marriage and her children and all sorts of things. She said, Mom, I've read this book called Boundaries. These are your boundaries. This is where you cannot just arrive and walk into my kitchen and start, you know, it's not going to work. So, and then I got a daughter-in-law. That was another story. But anyway, so yeah, you've got to set the boundaries. And I think it's really important. And we're not taught to set, because as women, we normally people pleasers. We want to please everybody. Everybody doesn't like us. And it's quite hard to set those boundaries. You can't do this right now. This is not working for me, you know, to set it. So, Stacey, you're quite soft and nice and pleasant. Everybody likes you. How do you set boundaries to people? You can't come just because you can come no further.
Yeah, I've had to seriously do the Henry Cloud boundaries, because I have got, you know what, I don't want to say I've got terrible boundaries. You know, everybody has different boundaries that works for them. And I have very, very thin boundaries, very broad boundaries. So, and not a lot, I also not a lot really, I enjoy people coming to me, and I enjoy lots of conversations. So in the past few years, I have had to build boundaries, and I've had to learn how to do it, because I had at one stage, I had virtually no boundaries. So everybody was dumping on me, and yeah, it was quite stressful, but I've had to learn it, and it's been a journey. And if anyone out there struggles with boundaries, it's definitely an area that needs to be met. You know, some people just naturally have excellent boundaries, and others don't. So if you don't, get Dr. Henry Cloud. He's got a lot of material online. He's got lots of YouTubes, he's got podcasts that you can go and look at. Get his book. There's lots, I mean, all therapists can help with boundaries. So it's definitely an area that people need to venture into. I know I needed it.
Okay, Kirsten, now I want to come back to you, because we're great on goal setting. We set our goals, we work to our goals, that type of thing. But a lot of people, and now we're coming up to the end of the year, we say, oh, it's going my goals for next year. And I said, what happened to goals for this year? No, well, they didn't happen. So, but I was so happy today. One of the ladies in a group who was always anti everything, she said to me 2 years ago, I put it on my vision board that I'd go and see my son in America, and I had no hope of doing it. I had no money. I had no way of doing it. And now she said, today my son sent me a ticket, said, Mom, come over for Christmas this year. And she said, I couldn't believe it because my vision board, I hadn't changed it for 2 years. I never thought it would come true, but I left it there, and now it's come true. So with goal setting and that, if you feel that you're in a bad place and you want to get to a good place, I always say set big, hairy, audacious goals. Kirsten, what do you say to people at this time of year? Oh, I set goals last year, they didn't work, how do you say to them, well, they didn't work because you didn't make them work? I'm too direct and too in your face, so you do it a bit more subtly than me.
Okay, so this is where I think that a lot of people get the idea of goals very wrong. They think that goals are a place to get to, but goals are a place to start from. And how I see this is, once again, the mindfulness stuff comes in very, very significantly here. The mindfulness, the awareness, the mindset, all of that stuff. And what I mean by that is that, yes, set these big, hairy, audacious goals. Go for it. Number one, write it down. Don't just have an idea, because if you're standing at the edge of a swimming pool and you decide to jump into the pool, have you actually jumped into the pool? No, you've just decided to do it. So you can't work towards a goal without putting in the action towards that goal, which is a very simple thing to do. But this is where the idea of all or nothing thinking comes into play. So a person goes, I want to be a millionaire by the age of 35, right? And then you go, okay, well, if you want to be a millionaire by the age of 35, how much would you have to, say, for instance, you're 25 now. How much would you have to have earned by 30? What are you going to do in that stage? And it can be broken down to such a simple thing of, for instance, if I wake up and I'm like, you know what, I feel like scrolling on Instagram for the first half an hour of my day. I've got to think to myself, does this move me more to being a millionaire by the age of 35 or more away from it? And if I've got to think of, what am I doing now? How am I starting to move towards my goal? And a lot of people will think of a goal as this big thing at the end, this big outcome, and it's almost so big and hairy and audacious that it seems overwhelming. But goals are the ability to act on incremental, consistent steps on a daily basis, and to know that you don't have to do it all at once. So say, for instance, a lot of people will say, I don't know, let's use the example of finishing a book. Okay, that's a random, very simple goal to work towards. I want to finish this book in 2 months' time. Okay, so then they think, oh, I've got to finish it in 2 months' time. It means I've got to read every night for 2 hours, 3 chapters, it's not sustainable. And so you've got to go, okay, what's realistic for me? Realistic for me is probably dedicating myself to 10 pages a night. And then I read 10 pages a night, but then also to say, if I went a whole week without reading 10 pages a night, I'm not now going to give up on my goal. I'm not going to go, oh, well, I set these things to do incrementally day by day, and I didn't do it for a week or 3 days or 2 weeks or whatever. So now I'm it's useless and I may as well not even try. You just pick up where you started. Where you left off, And so it becomes about going, where am I now? Where do I want to get to? If I want to be a millionaire by the age of 35, do I need to have energy throughout my day? Yes, I do. Okay, how do I have energy? I need to get enough sleep. Okay, am I getting enough sleep? No, because I'm binge watching series until 12 at night. Okay, what should I do differently? Maybe watch series until 9 o'clock at night and then get a night's sleep. Because the simple things that you don't even think are going to get you towards your goal are the things that do. And then the thing about your friend's vision board, this is what I absolutely love. So this has also been scientifically proven that the brain has no way of knowing what it is to be doing an action versus thinking about doing an action. So this is where visualization comes into play. So and a lot of Olympic athletes and professional sports people, they they have this thing of they'll sit down, they'll close their eyes, and they'll visualize themselves like winning the race or getting the goal or whatever. And it's been shown that when they're doing those visualizations, the brain lights up the exact same way as when they're actually doing it. And so because your brain is something of habit, and the more that you go along certain pathways, the more that you're going to learn how to go along those certain pathways. When you visualize yourself doing something on a regular basis, you're basically telling your brain that you've already done it, that you already know how to do it. So say, for instance, you're having trouble with aggression with your spouse, or fighting or taking it out. What you could do is you could set daily 2 minutes to sit down at the beginning of the day and visualize exactly what it would look like for you to respond kindly to your spouse. Visualize it, feel how it would feel, see yourself getting riled up and actually going, wait, I'm actually not going to act out on that thing. Visualize so specifically, like, what are you wearing? Like, make it as much detail as possible, and do that daily, even just for 2 weeks, and see your ability to stop reacting to your spouse that way improve. Because your brain is already now going along that pathway. It's going, my spouse gets angry at me, or I get frustrated, and I choose this direction, because you've been training your brain to choose that direction. So that's kind of like where you can work towards in your goals in terms of visualization. That's why when she had that thing on her vision board, she was like, my brain is thinking this happens. My brain is thinking this is happening. My brain is thinking this is happening. And the more that you condition your brain to think of things that you want to happen, the more chance you have at them actually happening. So, yeah.
And I think that's so important. But, you know, I always teach people, start with the end in mind, because Dr. Stephen Covey teaches that. You know, they say, I want to buy a car, for instance, my staff, or I want to buy a car. I say, well, the first thing you must do is decide which car, and then you work your way backwards, how much your repayments must be, how much you must earn to be able to afford those repayments. You work your way back to today. But all they can do is say, no, I really want to buy that car, but oh, it's so expensive, I don't think I can afford it. And so it's to actually turn their mind around to say, no, start with the end in mind and work backwards, because then you set your steps that you have to climb to get to where you want to be. And when, so Stacey, let me just come to you now. When people come to you and say, this is what's hassling me, now you've got 90 people on your list of people that are going to help them. How do you decide which one? Do you sort of say, well, maybe this one or maybe that one, or do you discuss it with Jess? How do you decide which person is going to be the right person to help you? Because we've got people out there, everybody's got their own issues. I say some people have got more issues than You magazine. But anyway, they've got lots and lots of issues out there, and then you've got to decide which way they go. How do you work it out?
Actually, to be honest, Jess has got more expertise in this one, but we have formulated a program in which it works through. Jess, would you like to take over?
Yes, Margaret. So we've got a range of questionnaires. There's 14 different questionnaires, and then we've got a little formula that we use, which gives the person a score, just to gauge where they're at. So, for example, am I experiencing symptoms of anxiety? If the person gets 28 out of 40, quite possible that they're experiencing symptoms of anxiety. It's not a diagnosis. It's not a medical questionnaire. It's just a gauge so that we know where they sort of at. And then we ask a few other questions based on budget and therapy, if they would like a specific type of therapy. If they have no clue, then we'll just read the questionnaire, and based on their age, what they're looking for, their gender, etc., then we'll suggest 3 or 4 specialists to them. So there is a little bit of a formula in terms of the yes/no questions and their score, but then in terms of matching them with someone, it's quite a personal process to try and get the right person for them.
So now, Kirsten, if they send you somebody and you think, wow, this is not the right person for me, is there anybody you ever got to think, I'm not going to be able to help you? Or do you get the person and you just say, look, I can help this person, and let's just go through the formula that I work with? Kirsten, when they come to you, how do you decide? Sometimes you just don't like people. I mean, sometimes I work in a shop and you just see somebody, oh my gosh, you know, this person's not for me. I can hand them over to another salesperson, but you can't. You're stuck with them.
Yes and no. It's a little bit of a paradoxical answer. So firstly, whenever I get a new client, I always do an assessment call with them first to see, because obviously a lot of people I deal with have mental illnesses. So I need to then very realistically say, okay, this person needs a higher level of care that I can give to them. And that's when I'll refer them on to maybe a treatment center or a psychiatrist or something like that. Or I work with a team. So I'll say, listen, I'm happy to coach you in these certain areas. However, you also need to go and look at a psychiatrist or whatever, you know. I don't mean to blow my own trumpet, but I'm going to say it because I'm confident in this, is that I have a lot of space for people. And so I find I'm quite tolerant. So I find it very, very seldom that a person will get on my nerves, or a person will be like, I can't deal with this person or whatever, because I'm not taking them onto me, if that makes sense. I separate myself from them in a very, like, it's almost like a loving detachment, you know. So when a person becomes too much or whatever, I either, if necessary, set a boundary and I say, this is what the role here is, this is what I can and can't do, and I step back. Or when there has been a situation the one time where I could see a client, she wasn't invested in what I was doing, she didn't care, she wasn't doing any of the assignments, she wasn't, you know, and she would come to stuff, she wasn't present, authentic or whatever, and she just wasn't in it. And then I presented the option to her. I said, I have recognized that you're not completely ready or prepared or willing or whatever for the process that I'm taking you on with. Here are my options. Either you do X, Y, Z, and we continue this journey together, or we part separate ways, you know. And I've like at the back of your head, you go, oh my gosh, this client is like my financial reliance for the next 6 months or whatever, you know. But that's where I say it's not about whether I'm getting money from them or not. It's about whether or not I am the best suited for their healing journey. And if I'm not, I don't want to be involved, you know, not because I don't care, but because at the end of the day, my client's healing, the optimal healing is my ultimate goal. And if I'm not meant to be in that process, then I'll step back, you know. And so when it comes that like clients are getting too much or like I don't want to deal with them, this is where I assess my own thinking. Why are they getting too much? Are they triggering a pain point for me? Are they reminding me of a person that I don't like? Are they making me feel uncomfortable? And I go, okay, these are my emotions. These are my feelings. How can I remove them to best help this person? And so that's how I approach it.
Amazing. Well, that's wonderful. Jess, we've only got 7 minutes left. Just a quick wrap up from you, Jess. When people come to you and you've got to find the right person for them, it just tells you they do the questionnaire, and then you assess after that. You follow up and say, how's it going? Is this the right person? Are you seeing improvement? Because they all, as you say, want a quick fix. I want give me a pill. I'll just get better tomorrow. And you want to say, no, you have to work through it. It's a journey. It's not a destination.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, two of the things that we need to highlight is that, yes, it is a journey. It doesn't happen your first therapy session. In fact, sometimes you can feel worse because, you've suppressed all these feelings, suppressed all these emotions, whatever it is that you've been through. Suddenly it all comes out and you can actually feel worse afterwards. But the second thing is that it is really, really a personal journey. So the type of therapy, the person you're speaking to, there needs to be that authentic connection. You need to be able to feel like you are in a space that you can fully be yourself and fully open up. So it might mean shopping around for a therapist, and that's okay. It's okay to, as much as the client may not be for the therapist may not be for the client. And it's nothing personal. It's just, we can't love everybody. We can't get along with everybody. And the therapy process needs to be personal to you. Otherwise, you just won't stick to it. And then obviously it will feel like a waste of time. So if it means trying 2 or 3 therapists, that's okay. It doesn't mean, after the first one didn't quite feel right, to then stop. So to keep going. But just to wrap up on the mindfulness part of today, I think it's such a lovely concept to see the mind and the brain as our control center. And that is where everything begins. So if we have a behavior, an experience, a relationship, whatever it is that makes us feel uneasy or uncomfortable, to just, as Kirsten says, make some space, be present, think about our thinking, think about what it is that's making us act a certain way, behave a certain way, be in a relationship that isn't necessarily good for us, whatever it may be, and just address those thoughts, and then make any changes from there on out. But the mindfulness process just allows us the space in which to do so. So it's really just looking after our control center, making it a, you know, we live, that's where we live. So it needs to be a good and happy and healthy place. So taking the time to make sure that it is.
You unmute, Margaret.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, Stacey, a wrap up from you.
Yeah, so I love this.
Yeah,
I love this topic. I love mindfulness. I love you know, have that journey, because it is a journey. It's not something that just happens overnight. And it is a case of making yourself present in the moment, finding out what works for you, and being proactive. I mean, my thing that I say to myself and my family is this good for you? Is this good for me? Like, if it's good for me, I'm going to do it. If it's bad for me, let me not do it. I know sometimes you want to do it, and the urge, like, you know, the urge is there to do it, but is it good for me? No, it's not. Okay, let me try and do something else. Let me replace it with a, you know, more proactive, better, you know, something that's better for me. But I also want to mention before we go that next week we have got Lee Maranaki with us, and she is going to be talking about lessons from nature, which is going to be exciting. So all fitting in with the mindfulness, which is great.
fantastic. And Kirsten, just to wrap up for you, the women who are out there who are just too afraid to go and talk to somebody who's a stranger to them, they don't want to talk to their friends, they don't know who to talk to, but I want them to feel comfortable coming to you and saying, this is what I've been through, and you've been through a lot yourself, so you know how you feel at that stage. This is where I am. It's the end of the year. The year hasn't gone how I wanted to go, and then they come to you and say, right. And you've got to make sure that they're going to work. They understand that they have to work on it as hard, if not harder than you do, to make it all come out. Just a quick wrap up to all those women out there who are feeling that way at the moment.
Okay, so what I'd like to say to anyone who is feeling this way at the moment is that the amount of personal fulfillment that you feel in your life is directly proportional to the amount of fears you're willing to walk through. So walk through your fear, knowing that if you do it in a space that is safe, like with a professional, you're almost 100% guaranteed to be able to learn how to develop a net to catch yourself or be caught by the professional. So it is a safe space. You will be okay, provided you come there just as you are, not with any pretenses, not with any expectations. Just come and know that there's never a negative outcome from wanting to develop yourself, ever.
Okay, wonderful. I think that's amazing. There's never a negative outcome from wanting to develop yourself. And that's what it all is. Life is growth. This is a journey. It's not a destination. We've got to grow ourselves to be the best people that we can possibly be. And that's what we're here to do, to help all of you out there. If you're anxious, if you're not sure, if you think maybe, you know, you can always contact Stacey or Jess. You can see they're so approachable, and they'll be able to help you and find exactly the right person to help you to get over all the issues that you have. We do not want you having more issues in the U Magazine. So just get over those issues and move on with your life. And that's why we're here. We're here to help you every step of the way. Thank you so much for all of you who joined us online today. Thank you so much for all of you who joined us on Facebook. Thank you for all the questions. We didn't get through to all of them, but we'll do our best to get them through to you this week. And we'll see you next week talking about lessons from nature. Thank you, Kirsten, for being our guest speaker today. We really enjoyed having you here. Thank you, Stacey and Jess, for setting it up. And thank you,
Margaret.
See you next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye. Thanks, Margaret, for hosting us. Thanks. Bye.